Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Peace and love, y'all. This is the Travelers Podcast. I'm Brother Ali. The reason that I always start by saying peace and love is because I'm genuinely coming to you in the name of, in the spirit of, and the prayer for peace and love for you. Peace in the Islamic tradition, we say salam. And salam means peace, but whenever you translate from these really rich, deep, ancient languages to English, there's a lot that's lost. There's a lot that just doesn't show up. And then also a lot of times there's stuff that gets conveyed that isn't actually intended. You know, there are ideas that get picked up from other sources that aren't actually intended. So when we say peace or salam, we don't just mean passive, and we don't just mean inactive. We don't just mean receptive, I'm not doing anything, I'm just going to, passively be at peace. And there's a conversation there because sometimes people say, well, Islam is a religion of peace. And that's, I don't know if that's necessarily a good way to convey that, but I understand it. Where peace is always the goal, peace is always the ideal, peace is always what we're always striving for. But when people say, well, if you're so peaceful, how come there is an element of combat to Islam? Well, because salam means peace, but it doesn't mean a passive peace. It means a peace that comes about through submission and with the recognition that there is a battle intrinsically happening even within the human being. And especially within the human being, with the human condition. So a human being is a soul, and the soul is connected to the timeless, infinite, universal, to the unseen. The soul is our universal, timeless connection to truth and beauty and virtue. And so that's who we are at our truest self, at the core of who we are the breath of the divine. And it's also true that we're an animal living in the material world. And so there's an element of survival that's necessary. There's an element of competition that's necessary, related to our survival. And we have so we're created with certain desires, with certain appetites, and we also have an ego. So in terms of who we are, on the one side, we got the soul that's connected to the timeless, universal beauty and truth. We also have the ego that's connected to the appetites. And the ego is what takes those appetites completely out of order and out of whack. And it creates a monster if it's not disciplined, and if that ego isn't forced to submit to the soul and ultimately to the unseen, to the creator, to the divine. And so the war going on inside of us is, the ego on one hand and the soul on the other hand. And what hangs in the balance in between those two is our heart and our mind. So the heart and the intellect are constantly being pulled in either direction. So to be at peace means that the ego needs to be disciplined to the point where the ego actually submits. And that's what we talk about. We talk about, like the idea and the concept of sainthood. Not that these people never make mistakes, but these people are truly at peace. These are people whose ego has been forced to submit, has been disciplined to the point where it submits to the soul. The lower self submits to the higher self. So this reality, and that comes about with a heart that's purified and with an intellect, a mind that becomes wise. So the mind needs to become wise to the reality that I'm going to have appetites that are not good for me and for other people, even though I desire them. And even at the moment I'm fulfilling them, there's a sense of satisfaction or joy that comes along with them. You know what I'm saying? So it's something as simple as me eating all the baklava in Istanbul where I live, and the kunafa and the ice cream and and then you got all this Syrian stuff now. Man, these Syrian desserts are a problem. Not to mention the fact that now they're starting to bring in, good thing there's not good ice cream here. If Haagen-Dazs starts showing up over here, I'm gonna have a real problem. I'm really blessed that it's not here now in Istanbul, But they got Krispy Kreme here. What the hell is what is this? What's happening? You know what I'm saying? Can I get some respite as like a fat kid? Can I get some respite from anything? It's bad enough that I fled the land of donuts and ice cream and came to the land of baklava and, kunafa and all this stuff. But now all this other stuff is starting to show up from the West, man. Please, like, give me some respite. But the things that are good to me are not always good for me. And my ego just demands them because I'm me and I want them, and that's it. The same as, maybe people's bodies look good to us, and it's like, that person who's running for president again is on the microphone saying, when you're famous, you can just grab them by the private parts. And like, yeah, the desire and the appetites want to touch somebody's private parts. That looks like it feels good. And it might feel good to the hand when you touch it. You know what I mean? But there's got to be some wisdom, and the heart's got to be in line. The mind's got to be in its proper order. You know what I'm saying? So that the ego can't just do whatever it wants. You can't do that. Like, yes, you have a desire to do it. Yes, you have an appetite for it. And yes, the sensation of it might feel good to you in that moment, but you could destroy somebody's life. You know what I mean? You're dehumanizing a human being by doing that. You're turning a full human being who also is a soul and a heart and a mind and an intellect, and also is, the living embodiment of the divine attributes. Like, come on. And you're turning this person into a toy, into an animal, into an object for your own gratification. You can't do that. So when we say, may you be at peace, it's like, may you win the war. May we win the battle that allows us to be people of integrity who do what who actually do what we believe. How amazing would it feel to be a person that only does what I believe in? That's why I live in Istanbul. Like, that's what all this is about for me. I wish that I could be what I believe in. And the only thing stopping me from doing it is this old raggedy, rusty, dusty monster of an ego. And so every time I give it what it wants, it gets stronger, even if there's nothing necessarily wrong with that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'll stop eating ice cream all the time. But then in Istanbul, they got these cherries, man, and they only come in season. And when these cherries come out, it's like, you can eat an ice cream amount of sugar if you take enough of these freaking cherries to the grill. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing to yourself? You know what I'm saying? So it's a constant battle. And the people that we look up to, the people that in the Islamic tradition we consider awliya, the people that are very close to God, they're very close to the divine. They're intimate with the Creator. They're the friends of Allah, the saints. These are people that discipline their ego so much that their ego just doesn't really have a say in the matter anymore. And I want to be like those people, but I also, just from being around them, like what it takes to become like that, it's like, I don't know. At least I can keep company with people like that. So like, I'll travel around the world just to sit in a room with a person that I believe to be one of those people. So when I say, may you be at peace, it's like, I'm wishing you the serenity of being what we believe in and doing only what we believe is right. You know what I'm saying? To be a person like that. So when I say peace and love, that's what I mean by peace. And that's a battle. That comes as the result of a battle. And so, yeah, in Islam, we have jihad. And the greater jihad, jihad al-akbar, the great jihad, is to fight the ego on behalf of the divine, on behalf of the soul, on behalf of the world of infinite, timeless, unseen beauty and truth. So yeah, that's the jihad. And then sometimes you got to fight with people that are obsessed with oppressing others or oppressing us, and that takes on multiple forms. It can be podcasting and posting and petitioning and boycotting, and it can be, it can take all of those forms. It can also take the form of meeting your enemy on the battlefield. What jihad cannot take the form of is harming innocent people. Even harming trees or animals or insects and things like that. All of these things. So we have a sharia in Islam that basically gives straight up parameters for things. You can't do this. If you do this thing, it's haram. These things there are some things that are so good that they're requirements for us to do, and we're actually it's a problem for us ethically if we don't do them. So yeah. So may you be at peace. peace and love, and then love. And I mean, love is what holds it all together. We talk about those people. Allah says that my servant doesn't draw near to me with anything greater than what I've made an obligation for them. And then they draw even nearer than that by doing what's beyond that, what's above and beyond that, to the point where I love them. God says, the Creator says about certain people, to the point where I love them. And that changes it all. So Allah says, and then I become the eye with which they see, the ear with which they hear, the hand with which they hold and strike, the foot with which they walk, the heart with which they perceive. So that's a very, very special thing. The love is what changes it all. Allah says, I was a hidden treasure, but I love to be known. So I created the creation to know me. We believe in the Islamic tradition, Allah is Al-Wadud, the source of love. The source of all love is the divine. And so all love is actually, in that sense, from God to God and through God. And Allah is the source of love. And so Allah is Al-Wadud. And then the creation is the Habib, the beloved. And the most beloved, according to the Islamic perspective and tradition, is the Prophet Muhammad himself, peace be upon him, the most beloved, God's most beloved thing, the most beloved creation. But creation exists, according to the Islamic worldview, as a love affair between the Creator and the creation. So it's all by love, to love, from love, through love. It's all in love. And it's all with the intention of achieving wholeness and soundness. So peace and love. That's why I start with that. This is an interesting episode. And I want to do a number of interesting episodes. And I'm hoping I can keep my mouth shut and not talk and I can actually get to the meat of what I want to say here today, which is Blood on Beats is a learning series that I've done several times, and we're launching it again. And that's what we're here to talk about. And it's coming up. Registration, by the time you hear this, registration will be open. It usually sells out really quickly. It's an interactive, month-long, intensive learning series that we do to build community around writing songs. Everything from the nuts and bolts of the technicality of it, to the spirituality, to the emotional part of it, to connecting with people, to telling the truth, to speaking truth to power, to all these kind of things, healing ourselves, all this stuff through songwriting. And in a lot of ways, it's my superpower, and I'm very grateful to be offering it to you. But I want to also say something really quickly about a couple of podcast episodes that I plan to do over the summer, inshallah. So I communicate mostly through voice notes because I'm partially blind and my community is spread out around the world in different time zones. So I do a lot of voice notes. I love doing that. There are certain voice notes that I send all the time to people because they're just kind of like frequently asked questions in my personal life. And so I'm like, you know what? My intention is to make podcast episodes out of these, partially just so that I can send the podcast episode to people. But then also I'm like, man, let me just offer this to my whole community that listens. So for example, a lot of Westerners visit Istanbul mostly as like spiritual seekers because of the spiritual and historical kind of gravity and magnitude of Istanbul. So I end up doing a bunch of voice notes for people that's like, yo, this is what you should pack. This is what it's like when you get off the plane. This is how you get a cab. This is where you should stay. This is where you should not stay. This is what you should wear and not wear. This is about money and about your phone and about this, places to visit that people always visit. And like, yeah, that's cool, but that's really touristy. Here's a much more authentic version of that. Where do you get the best lentil soup in Istanbul, and why is it the best? You know what I'm saying? This is made as a spiritual practice connected all the way back to Rumi himself. You know what I mean? Where can you go to get sweets that are, the people making these sweets is seen as a spiritual art form. And where can you get sweets that are made with love, where they recite the Quran over it and they actually make it with water from the well of Zamzam in Mecca? I mean, just come on. So, inshallah, my plan is to make an episode about kind of like the ultimate guide to Westerners visiting Istanbul for spiritual reasons and historical reasons. And I think that should be super dope. And I actually have somebody come in. My man, James Huff, who's a member of our caravan, really dear friend of mine. I've mentioned him before. So he actually arrives tomorrow. So while I'm with him, I'm going to bring my phone, and I'm going to do it as a talking episode of the podcast, but I want to do it as a visual thing too. So inshallah, I'll be editing in video of me, like while I'm doing these different things with James. I'll do that. And hopefully I can get James to get on the mic. I know that he's not necessarily a public person, but there are times where I just have friends come on the podcast and people seem to really benefit and enjoy those episodes. So maybe we'll get James to sit down and talk, and you can hear how me and him kind of look and sound like twins in a lot of ways. James got a dope voice. Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Super dope. Hopefully we'll get him on the mic. We'll see. So that's the episode that's coming. Another one is that people always ask me, I'm a Muslim and I make rap music. Now, a lot of Muslims are in entertainment and music and arts in a lot of different ways. But there is a conversation amongst Muslims, especially in the West, about whether or not making music is even permissible and whether or not it's good for a practicing, hopefully committed Muslim to take on making music at all and then to do it as a career. And so inshallah, I want to do a podcast episode about that specifically because I get so many people asking me about that and I have so many conversations about it that I'm going to make a podcast episode. Both of those will probably get me more critical comments than I get for anything else, I imagine. But so those are episodes that I want to do coming up, inshallah. And there are others, but those are two kind of like super frequently asked questions and things like that. This episode is kind of similar to that because I want to talk about Blood on Beats and I want to tell you about what this thing is, but also this will become one of the kind of like required listening, reading things that I do for this course. So part of it is that the people that are listening to this right now will be people who have signed up for the Blood and Beats course, and this will be one of the many things that I share with people to watch or read or listen to before the course starts. So Blood on Beats, so we do two different learning series so far, me and BK1. One of them is called, what do we call it? Move the crowd? No, Master the Ceremony. Master the Ceremony. How to make a living as a touring musician. So we start from the nuts and bolts of how to, like the technical part of how to do a live set, how to play your music, how to hold the mic, the mechanics of the sound system, all the kind of logistical and technical things you need to know to be able to do a show. Then how to put together a live set, how to use tools like, crowd interaction, how to make the right set list, how to bring in, different elements of talking and setting up songs and introducing oneself. And, so how to basically make the perfect set for the open mic, for the showcase, and that's usually going to be a 7-minute set, maybe 10 minutes, something like that. And then also how to build that into opening for shows when they come to town, how to build relationships with the local promoters, how to get on, and then how to actually do that set, how to conduct yourself as an opener, the manners, how to build the set. We talk about things like merch. Then we talk about how to get on tour as an opener, how to approach artists as touring for them, as support, as openers. So basically how to get on tour. And then things like how to, when and how to talk to a booking agent, how to be a headliner. And there's a lot there about how you can actually make a career as a live performing and hopefully touring musician. So that's one of the ones that we do. But that's not what we're talking about now. This one is called Blood on Beats, How to Die Writing a Song. And this is a month-long interactive intensive workshop. So the way that it's structured is that there are 4 sessions. We do two or maybe even more cohorts. If you're listening to this, keep an eye out for this. It's on sale now. Registration is open. And so if you're hearing this right now and you're interested in it, just go register because they sell out. Both of the times that we've done it, they sold out pretty quickly. And go register. Don't miss out. This is dope. Like This is something that we're offering to you that is really dope. And if you have missed it, if registration is no longer open by the time you hear this, go to brotherali.com, sign the mailing list so that you'll hear first. I don't send email all the time. I don't say like, hey, whatever. It's only when something really cool is coming up. So the Blood on Beats course is available. It's we keep the cohorts small because we want them to be intimate. And this is actually going to be a creative community that engages with each other throughout the month. So we do 4 2-hour sessions. We usually do 2 cohorts, and we offer them at 2 different time slots so that hopefully everybody finds a time slot that works for them. In the future, we may do 3 cohorts. I don't know. But we want to keep the group sizes small because you're actually going to be communicating and creating alongside each other. And there's times where we're sharing things with each other that are a bit vulnerable. So it's 4 2-hour sessions where I come in with a certain topic that I want to cover, and then we do live question and answer. But then also throughout the month, there's a Slack channel. Slack is an app that people can use you can do all sorts of things with Slack, but we use Slack in particular because it's private and you can send voice notes. So each week, I give the cohorts things to read and watch and listen to prepare for the subject that we're going to talk about. So, for example, the first week we talk about, the first week is always called Respect the Architects. Shout out to Blueprint. Blueprint has a joint called Respect the Architect. But it's basically about understanding the culture and the art form, the culture of hip hop and the art form of MCing. To really get a thorough idea for how did this stuff develop, who were some of the key players, what were the intentions behind. So what I start with are books to read, documentaries to watch. I have a playlist that shows some of the early progression of hip-hop songwriting and MCing and, writing verses and how this art form developed. And so then in the first week, we start with the nuts and bolts of what is it to actually write rap lyrics. And we begin with, basically rapping, hip-hop music, rhyming, MCing, is a beat playing and saying words that correspond with that beat. And so we start with one of the early things that's so fundamental and foundational to writing rhymes. And so for a lot of people, you might think, trust me, like when we get to these fundamentals, a lot of people think they understand them. And we get people that come in and sometimes take this course that have been making music and they're actually rappers. They got music released and everything. And we start with talking about, can you count bars and do you understand how, musically, how hip-hop songs are arranged? And people say that they do, but when we get into it, they actually do not. So we talk very specifically, and I've developed a way of transcribing and actually writing hip-hop lyrics on a sheet of paper. You actually get a really beautiful custom rhyme book that we created and that we manufactured just for this course. So you get a rhyme book. That's one of the things that you get as a gift. And we really spend the first week learning how to transcribe and write out a rhyme on a piece of paper or type it out on a phone or on a computer so that you always know what part of the music, where these words are supposed to land and how they correspond to and how they relate to the music with the beat. And this is extremely helpful because it helps with cadence, it helps with style, it helps with flow, it helps with delivery, it helps with creating music that people can actually listen to and take in, as a listener, because we are going to get to conveying a message with the music. Sorry. We're really going to get into the spiritual, the political, the communal, the therapeutic, the visceral, all these different elements of writing songs. We're going to get into all of that, but we're starting with how do the words relate to the beat? And I'm telling you, People think that they know this. You know what I'm saying? Like, so me and my daughter are taking me and my 16-year-old are going to Turkish school now, Turkish language school during the day. And you start with the alphabet. And in I think it was 23, when the founder of the nation state, the Republic of Turkey, when he came in, he eliminated the Arabic alphabet as the way for writing Turkish, and he Latinized it. So he, the letter A, the letter B, the letter C. So when you come in as an English speaker, you're like, oh, I know the alphabet. I get it. There's a couple things that have dots, and so you're like, all right, let me learn those. There's a couple things that have squiggly lines. So you're like, all right, let me learn, what does the O with the dots sound like? Okay, so that's a little different. So you think you know it, you know what I'm saying? But man, you got to learn the alphabet in Turkish is different from the alpha. Like, there's 2 letter I's, for example. There's a letter I with a dot that always says the sound E. And then there's an I with no dot that always says But if you don't know that, but the letter I never says I, or I, which it says often in English. So like, you got to learn the alphabet. And somebody just started the class. We're a week into our course, and somebody just came from England and walked through the door and was like, yo, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm ready to jump in. And me and my daughter are like, yo, learn the alphabet. And the people are like, I know the alphabet. I get it. Yeah, no, I got it. No, you don't. Learn the alphabet. So much of this, the first part of disciplining the ego when it comes to this particular course is just submit to learning the fundamentals. Take a week, and I give exercises. I give a very specific exercise for how to transcribe lyrics. And if you're submitting to it, then you can actually do it. There are a lot of people that get through the whole month and they never actually get this part. So in the beginning, there's a lot of fun talk about the development of things, but it's really about getting these fundamentals together, getting these foundational things. But really what that creates is a person who has mastery over the timing of the words. And that's so important with emceeing. The reason why when you listen to somebody great, like Kendrick Lamar, like Pharoah Monch, like Black Thought, like Aesop Rock, like, you hear these people who are masters at every syllable landing exactly where it's supposed to, using the time in the intended way, so that every single syllable, every single vowel and consonant and every breath is in exactly the right place. If you master this, you master your breathing. You know what I'm saying? You master your delivery. You master your cadence. You master your personality. You master your presence. It's so important. And so week 1 is that. And then, so we come in, you get a notebook, you get some writing prompts, you get lessons, you get homework. And then throughout the week, we're all communicating about what happened in class. And you also get to ask questions in the moment, but we're all communicating with each other throughout the week. And I'm listening to all these voice notes, and I'm also leaving them. People are submitting their homework for others to look at. And then also we're getting to know each other. So it's like I also have conversational prompts like, share with us who you are. Give me a 3-minute message about why you're taking this course, what you want to get out of it. Give us a couple minutes on, what is it that made you want to understand more about writing hip hop songs? What are the hip hop songs that have helped you develop as a human being? Because the reality is that we're connecting through this culture and through this art form because it gives the ability for human beings to communicate so profoundly and so deeply. Maybe you can hear the call for prayer. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah, wa qamat as-salah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. So maybe you can hear the call for prayer in the background. Istanbul is very special. But the hip-hop songs give the ability to communicate so much on so many different levels. And it's like we want to get into what was that connection for you, for each of us, and then also start to really sit with how can I, through the honor, through the practice of this art form, how can I start to tap into that for myself? And so, we get into how to write autobiographically. Like, what does it mean to share my story in my music? And what are the implications of that? You know what I'm saying? Because if I start telling my story, I'm going to talk about what happened with my mom. And what are the implications of talking about my mom publicly and what happened with her? Or maybe I'll be sharing stories of, things that happened to my wife. Or maybe I'll be talking to my children. Now I'm 20-something years in, and I have this like litany of songs. I have a full catalog of songs that I've written directly speaking to my son Fahim. And now he's a 24-year-old man with thoughts about like what was it like for him to grow up with an audience of people that have been following him and hearing about him. You know what I'm saying? What is that as somebody who's experienced it, And to also talk about the kind of what it means to relive these moments while writing them, and what it might mean for somebody else to be hearing that, and to really explore the therapeutic element of just how empowering it is. I'm sorry, I hope the call for prayer isn't distracting for you guys. But how empowering it can feel and how healing it can be to create, to have the ability to pick up the pen or type in the computer, or, I also talk about, there's another writing technique that I use of writing on the microphone in real time. You think of a few bars in it, but to have a creative process that allows me to take control of the narrative of the sometimes very traumatic things that have happened in my life, to very sincerely and truly be able to create a piece of art, and for me to have the final say over what's happened in my life. I mean, that's in a very powerful, very really therapeutic relationship, and for me, as a person who believes that the divine is the author of our lives, it's also an element in my relationship with the Creator that, like, in making art, in calling on these moments and reliving these moments in my life, making art about them, in a lot of ways gives a sense of closure, and in a lot of ways is a pleasurable ending. One of the things that we seek in the spiritual path of Islam is having pleasure with the divine decree, to be at a place where, like, to be in relationship with the Creator and say, like, I'm pleased with everything that you've written for me. That's a really lofty spiritual aspiration. And there's a lot of potential conflict there because, it may be that I've experienced a lot of injustice. It may be that I've lived nightmares, and most human beings have lived through nightmares in their lives. And most of us have no clue what other people have gone through. It's one of the really, really very powerful things about art in general, and about songwriting, and more specifically, and about hip hop more specifically. We communicate so much in a hip hop song. It's amazing. And people focus in a way that they don't focus at any other time. And, in a society where people are so isolated, a lot of times we don't realize that other people have gone through, or maybe they're going through now, what we've been through. So there's something so healing for everybody involved to hear that. And so that's one of the things that we talk about and really dive into in that process of, and really exploring what it means to share like that, to open up like that, to create art like that. And what I was saying with pleasure with the divine decree is that so many of us have these nightmares, but those nightmares have also been the means by which we've learned our greatest lessons and had our greatest openings. And some of our most profound spiritual experiences have come as part of something that's objectively wrong that happens to us. So balancing all of that, it's amazing. And it's so powerful that even talking to a group of people about it is powerful. Even sitting here talking about it now, I got a certain level of goosebumps because it's like, man, this is the reality of my life. And so much of doing these learning series is like, I want to share these gifts that I've been given with people. And I will say too, there's a price tag associated with it, and it's not cheap. But essentially what we're doing here is like, I'm setting the price point so that me and BK1 and the people that work with us and for us and our families and everybody that depends on us, that we can really justify taking an entire month, that all we're going to do for this whole month is focus with you on you. And making sure that we really honor this, because we're very present with this during the month that we're doing this. So, we talk about the fundamentals and we talk about, getting into the really kind of personal, emotional elements of re-exploring and re-examining, and in a lot of ways reliving these very visceral experiences in our lives and making art out of it that allows for ourselves and others to heal and to connect with each other and to bond with each other. Very, very profound. There's no feeling like, I don't have tattoos and I don't love tattoos. I don't necessarily like tattoos. It's just, it's part of my tradition, my spiritual tradition, but also I don't have any tattoos, and it just is what it is. But I realize and recognize and appreciate the fact that in the society and culture that I live in, and that most of the people that listen to my music live in, there's no greater way to show reverence for something and like a deep life-on-life connection with something than to tattoo it on yourself. And there are a lot of people that have words that I've written and said in songs tattooed on their bodies. And there's something extremely profound about that to me. So that's one of the things that we talk about. We also talk about, one of the weeks we focus on, truth-telling, speaking truth to power, activism, raising awareness, raising our voices. And this year in particular, that's going to be a hell of a one, because I've been talking a lot about Philistine. I've been talking about Palestine. And I always have. I've got songs on the record going all the way back to 2007. But I also talked about Palestine on my earlier records as well, but just less directly. But, that's always been a part of it. But in this year in particular, I've faced a lot of challenges and a lot of doors slamming in my face that are normally open to me because of the fact that we're using our music and our platform to talk about the genocide that's taking place in Palestine and the colonial project there, and et cetera. So, there's an entire chapter of this learning series directed just at that, because that is something that needs to be explored. And I've learned a lot over the years about when is it effective and when is it not. When does it get borderline corny? Because let's just keep it 1,000. Like, it's a very slippery slope to get into being preachy, to being corny, to being it gets preachy and corny so quickly. And I've got a lot of experience with it also, though, being very effective. There are laws in the books in Minneapolis and in the state of Minnesota that are directly related to how me and some others used our platform and our music to really affect people and their activism and organizing. It's very real. So I've got a lot of experience with, how it can be used and how it can go right and how it can go wrong on a lot of different fronts. Yeah. There's a moment that comes to mind of me being on stage at Soundset screaming into the microphone, I don't mean to F nobody's party up, but you know what I mean? And like that wasn't it, you know what I mean? That wasn't it. But then there are other times, you know, performing Dear Black Sun on stage in Minnesota, you know, around the Black Lives Matter stuff and around the, you know, and moments around George Floyd and moments around other things that it's like, you know, those were profound moments and those were, you know, healing, transformative moments for myself and others. And so, yeah, so there's a lot to talk about there. And that's one of the things that we focus on. And then we talk about also how to write songs that are effective. You know, I don't know how to write a hit song, but I do know something about, you know, there's things that we can write for ourselves. And then there are specific ways to write songs that are useful to other people and that are palatable and easy for other people to consume and easy for other people to allow into their minds and hearts and lives. So we talk about how to write effective songs, because a lot of times underground conscious backpacker, you know, whatever you want to label me and Immortal Technique and Merce and Dead Prez and, you know, to a certain degree Atmosphere and definitely Sage Francis and like a bunch of us that have a message in our music, you know, a lot of times we make music that, like, unless you're really on that page and unless that's really your thing, it can be hard to just put it on and listen to. You know what I mean? So I've also made a lot of music that's, you know, super lyrical, spiritual miracle, and it might be very impressive, but there's not a huge fan base for it. Those words are not getting tattooed on anybody because they're not accessible enough. You know, and so that's one of the elements that we talk about as well. So this learning series is coming up, and the registration is open now. And I just wanted to share with you just a little bit about what this thing is for me. Basically, I am where I'm at in my life because of my songwriting and my performing. Everything else that I do grows out of that. And the things that I've been able to do in my life are because of those two particular gifts. And they are gifts, but they're also skills that can be honed. And there's an element that you can't teach, but there's another huge element that you really can. And so I'm offering these things to people because these are the things that have changed and formed and shaped my life. And I say that with no exaggeration, you know, like I met my wife through writing songs and performing them, you know, and so now we live in Istanbul and there are, you know, a bunch of daughters and, you know, a business and there's all this stuff, you know, that exists because of this. So what I'm offering here is something that is of profound importance to me. And to be able to share it with people in a way that is intimate and that's personal, I take it very, 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 very seriously. This isn't a money grab. You know what I mean? This is not a money grab. This is not like, you know, this is not I don't pre-record these. Like, honestly, you know, there are people that make their business by telling you how to create, what they call it, digital real estate and e-products and you know, things like that. I could do this once and record it and then just make it available to people year round. And I probably would make more money doing it, but this is just one of the many things. Like, I could probably make way more money doing it a different way, but I want to do it like this because I want to do it with people. I want to hear them and talk to them and be present with them and navigate it with them and like take the journey with them. So this is Blood on Beats. You know, we've had talks about doing one on Islam. And so, I mean, let me know if you'd be interested in that. Let me know if you want to hear, if you want us to make the live touring one available again, like how to rock live shows and build a touring career. Because we did that one, and it was cool, but it wasn't as huge a response as the songwriting one. And it just kind of, it stands to reason, a lot of people would really benefit. Like, you don't have to want to do it as a career to benefit from writing songs. And another element of it is spiritual. There is a spiritual element as well. And we do talk about that as well. But, so there are a lot of people that want to write songs. I think there are less people that are on some like, man, I want to do this as a career. So we just didn't get the same level of response. But we did sell out a cohort and had a really dope, time exploring that stuff together. I love talking about both of these things. I love talking about all these things. So let me know if you want to see a Master of the Ceremony one about rock and live shows. And let me know if you want to do one about Islam. I feel weird charging money for the Islam one. Again, it's not really that I'm charging for the knowledge or the information. It's more so that I'm charging because when people pay for something, they take it more seriously. And I want all of us to take it extremely. And when you get paid for something, and then part of it is like I'm clearing my schedule for a month, which means that I'm not doing the things that generate the income for me and BK and our partners and our families. So part of it is just like I want to really financially just be able to justify like, this is what I'm doing this month. I'm not focusing on anything else. I just want to be very present. What I get up and focus on during my working hours is exploring songwriting with this community of people that want to do that with me. So just wanted to give you a heads up that this is happening, give you a little bit of insight into why we do it. We will be back next week, inshallah. Look out for these other episodes. And if there's other like FAQs or like frequently asked questions that you feel like, I would love to hear an episode where you explore this or tell the story of this. Man, I love Merce's podcast so much. Merce, if you haven't heard it yet, Best Rapper in LA podcast. He just talks through his entire career. It's almost an episode per song. Sometimes there'll be two songs in one episode. But now he just finished talking about the early Ninth Wonder albums, that's the period where I switched from being Merce's friend to being a genuine fan of the rap artist Merce. And now he's talking about his Warner Brothers album. It's fascinating, man. And there's nothing only Merce can describe Merce. Like, you need Merce to explain Merce to you. I've been his friend for 20-some years, and I learned so much, and I just finally feel like I'm fully understanding him as a person and as an artist. So I thought about just straight jacking that idea and be like, all right, maybe I'll talk through certain projects, you know what I mean? Because it's really beautiful. But let me know if there are things that you would like for me to cover in the podcast, or things that you want to get more information on or explanation on, or background and context and things like that. Again, we greet you in the name of peace and love, because we are promoting peace, and we love you. I genuinely love the people that listen to and participate in the things that I dedicate my life to. And I love all the people that I work with. And I love all the people I've ever worked with. Some of them were, there are people that I'm not necessarily on speaking terms with anymore, unfortunately. But man, if I ever worked with somebody creatively or like spent time with, I am forever trying to open that door. I am always, always, always trying to keep that door open. So anybody I'm not on speaking terms with, I want to be. I want to be, I have forgiven everybody, and I pray everybody forgives me. There are some people that I don't know how to have a healthy relationship with this person, but that's only after I've talked it through with them, But the door is always, always, always open. And I just say that to say that we do what we do in the genuine spirit and in the genuine pursuit of peace and love and goodness and wellness. So we end with another prayer that's very related to all of that. And we'll see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.